I'm Adam Todd, and welcome to Classroom Dynamics, a teacher podcast. I believe that the best way to engage students in a 21st century classroom is to immerse them with the transformative tools that will empower each and every one of them to excel in the future world that awaits. My focus is to ignite the spark that propels you and your students into an advanced tomorrow, and your journey into that future starts right now. Classroom Dynamics is supported by Logitech. As education continues to evolve, so does Logitech Education, your partner in content creation for the classroom. With Logitech's cutting-edge technology, students not only learn but also become content creators. Whether it's in person or online, Logitech's tools are designed to inspire educators and learners alike. Capture every educational moment in stunning detail and edit, produce, and share your creative journey with ease. Logitech Education, inspiring the next generation of creators. For more, visit logitech.com/education, transforming classrooms one innovation at a time. Calling all educators. Are you ready to inspire creativity and engagement in your students? Unlock their full potential with content creation. Imagine empowering them with cutting-edge tools like the Blue Sona microphone from Logitech, which ensures crystal clear audio quality for impactful projects. Logitech offers a full range of content creation solutions, from audio equipment and cameras to lighting and editing software. Plus, they have a suite of education solutions tailored for classrooms, elevating the learning experience for students and educators alike. Empower the next generation of creators by exploring the possibilities at logitech.com/education today. Welcome to Classroom Dynamics, the podcast where we get into the exciting world of technology and education. Hi everybody, I'm your host Adam Todd, and today we have an exciting episode lined up for you as we take a closer look at BrainPOP. And if you're an educator, chances are you know BrainPOP, but there is plenty more you may not know about this iconic brand that continues to grow and evolve. So let's uncover the history of BrainPOP, the learning design behind it, and discover why it's become such a beloved resource in classrooms around the world for nearly the last 25 years. Founded in 1999, BrainPOP is an educational platform that has been revolutionizing the way students learn through engaging and impactful digital content. It all began with a vision by Dr. Avram Kadar, a pediatrician and immunologist who sought to bring complex concepts to life in an accessible way, to demystify big ideas, capture kids' attention, and make learning enjoyable and meaningful. With this goal in mind, BrainPOP introduced its signature animated topics featuring endearing characters including Tim and Moby, who embark on educational adventures across a wide range of subjects across the curriculum. BrainPOP movies combine humor, visual storytelling, and expertly crafted educational content to simplify complex topics for students in grades kindergarten through 8 and even up. As BrainPOP continued to expand its offerings beyond the movie and quiz, it introduced additional learning activities such as games, movie making, concept mapping, and coding. This holistic BrainPOP experience builds students' background knowledge and vocabulary, allowing students to apply and teachers to measure what they know, and even deepens and extends the learning experience. Fast forward to today, BrainPOP has become a global leader in educational technology, trusted by millions of teachers, parents, and students worldwide. The company's commitment to creating high-quality, standards-aligned resources has earned it numerous accolades and recognition within the educational community. With a vast collection of learning experiences spanning science, social studies, mathematics, English, and more, BrainPOP continues to empower learners and promote multidimensional skills in an engaging and accessible manner. Today, we're sitting down with Dr. Barbara Hubert, the Senior Director of Learning Design at BrainPOP, who develops and scales learning experiences with a focus on literacy, access, equity, and inclusion. Dr. Hubert began her career in education as an elementary school special education teacher, working for 9 years in both public and charter schools, supporting both students and teachers. It's all just a click and a pop away. We'll be right back. Are you a dedicated educator searching for fresh and engaging resources to inspire your students? Look no further than Highly Motivated on Teachers Pay Teachers. Discover a treasure trove of easy-to-use lesson plans, vibrant visuals, and interactive activities designed to captivate young minds and ignite their love for learning. Unlock the potential within your classroom with Highly Motivated, from differentiated lap books to test prep passages on a multitude of topics. Our wide range of materials cater to most elementary and middle school grade levels. Join the community of passionate teachers who have already transformed their classrooms. Visit Highly Motivated on Teachers Pay Teachers and get ready to inspire, motivate, and empower your students like never before. Highly Motivated on Teachers Pay Teachers, where knowledge meets inspiration. She's the Senior Director of Learning Design at BrainPOP. I'd like to welcome my very special guest to Classroom Dynamics, Dr. Barbara Hubert, who is here to talk everything BrainPOP. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be here and chat with you all things BrainPOP.
I can't tell you how excited I am because I love BrainPOP. I know, just being a big fan of it. And it's probably the case by so many educators, like I said, just all over the world. Before we even get started, how would you describe BrainPOP to someone who may not know what it is, has never heard of it, might be a new teacher, or has previously heard about it and wants to learn a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to start high level, but take the journey with me. For me, when I think about BrainPOP, I think about a learning platform that really is at the center of where engagement meets rigor to drive those learning outcomes. And I know those terms have a lot of different meanings, so I'm going to unpack what I mean a little bit. When I think about engagement, I think about really mirroring that authentic student engagement piece, right? What is motivating me to learn? Bring me into the learning task or the lesson because it's meaningful, personally relevant, really purpose-driven, and it meets kids where they are. Alongside the R word, rigor, right? But when I think about rigor, what I actually think about is challenging and productive struggle, like learning activities that are designed to, again, meet kids where they are, because that's a really big piece of it, but engage them in those higher order thinking skills and complex concepts and meaning making. And so what that means and looks like on BrainPOP is, as a platform, we tap into that kid's natural curiosity to explore a topic deeper. And through that process, really help them practice and strengthen transferable meaning making skills that they're going to use in BrainPOP and beyond BrainPOP. And those meaning making skills are really those complex higher order thinking skills through the movies as an entry point, but all of our learning activities in support of that topic knowledge and those transferable skills. Because we really are, I like to think about it as leveling the playing field with background knowledge as one of our core strengths. I'll just say I come from a special education and literacy background. And so I'm constantly thinking about both learner diversity, but also literacy. How do we make strong readers and excited readers? And we know that background knowledge plays a really, really critical role in becoming a fluent and strategic reader. So I also love to think of BrainPOP as giving all kids entries into building that background. So we're kind of all on this level playing field of when we're engaging with the text, when we're coming up against new ideas, really all being able to be in conversation about it, regardless of where our learning paths have taken us to that point.
You actually said a really interesting word that I think a lot of teachers, I think they don't, not that they don't understand what the word means. I'm talking about rigor.
Mm-hmm,
I think they get very, very nervous when they hear that word.
Yeah.
They hear the word and they're like, wait a minute, am I doing rigor? Am I planning appropriate lessons so there's rigor already embedded in it? So how does BrainPOP then, like you mentioned rigor, so can you just explain to those teachers who might be a little bit afraid of that word, so to speak, how would that make them feel a little bit more comfortable?
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because I was going to say former educator, but once an educator, always an educator in my heart. That word rigor is charged, right? Because it's used in a lot of different ways. It's one of those sort of slippery educational buzzwords. But when you really get down to like brass tacks, rigor is holding a high standard for every student, but supporting them in meeting that high standard. And that high standard is a high thinking standard. Yes, it's driven by standards. What am I supposed to be doing or knowing in that grade level? But it's really about creating tasks and lessons and just learning experiences that are at that right level of challenge, that, that zone of proximal development. I'm meeting you there and I know where to go next. So there's struggle. It's not frustrating. It's productive. It's exciting struggle. You're like, oh, cool. I'm kind of digging into this meaty idea. Like, where do I go next? And I think that that's one of the superpowers of BrainPOP, right? Because you get to tackle complex ideas and topics from like computational thinking to the American Revolution to plot and theme, right? Like all across the spectrum of subjects. And there's a lot that goes into those topics, subjects, ideas, but we don't dilute that experience. We create an experience with our design of the movies and how they connect with kids through humor, through that animation, really bringing those ideas to life in a way through like a narrative arc, right? So we know teaching through narratives is like such a great way to make learning stick. And I think BrainPOP is just sort of like so well positioned to continue to do that. And so I know I said rigor, R word, but not but, and for me, rigor is really around like holding that complexity of thinking, meeting kids where they are and just supporting and nurturing them up to that place.
So it's almost like differentiation from your end on brain, like we're just talking about BrainPOP, using that as an example, differentiated on that end so that whatever level that child is on, there's your rigor.
Yep. And knowing the goal, right? Knowing where you're going, knowing where everyone's sort of got to be, but also knowing that kids not only take in, not even kids, humans, right? Take in information in different ways, process information in different ways, and express and show what they know in different ways that really are more aligned to what their like just learner preference is. And so really that's a huge part of rigor for me and thinking around differentiation, because it's really that place of, it's coming from universal design for learning, which I could talk about ad nauseum. But when we think about proactively designing for a diversity of learners, then we invite more learners in from the beginning. And so holding that alongside the kinds of questions we're asking in our pause points, or the kinds of questions we're asking in our quizzes and challenges, or the kinds of learning artifacts that kids get to create with tools like our Make a Map, which is our concept mapping tool. It really gives kids, like for me, I will concept map anything all day long. That is how my brain works. And so you give that to me and I can show you that. I can show you my ideas in a much stronger, more concise way than I can in writing any day. And I think BrainPOP holds that while being really intentional around making sure that those questions that are driving it are getting into the meat, the deep thinking and the complex ideas in that topic.
It's interesting. One of the units I do during the course of the year is digital sketchnoting. And just that whole visual aspect, going along with what you're saying with maps and things like that, the visual part of that, almost you have to see, just the kids' ideas come out so differently. And I think they feel like it's so much easier to get the ideas out that way, in that visual way, that it actually, their projects or whatever they're working on becomes so much more embedded into what they're trying to learn, and the memory of it and the understanding of it and the higher order thinking portions of it. It really does come together when you start to look at that.
Totally. It mirrors their brain process, right?
Yeah.
Your brains aren't like linear and perfect and concise. They're connected, they're tangentially, you come back to ideas, you connect to ideas. And so, yeah, I love it. I love that.
So you're saying there's no one size fits all in education.
That is, if
Right?
if I go out with anything, that is my line. There is
Right.
no one size fits all. Learner diversity is at the center of every human, every classroom. Yeah.
Yeah. I hope people who are listening that always feel like it's okay to do one size fits all will understand that it doesn't work that way.
It doesn't. Yeah. And that's okay. Right. And it's
Right.
okay that it doesn't work.
Right.
That's okay. That's the norm, that it
Right.
doesn't work that way. Yeah.
I think it's better that it doesn't.
100%.
Right?
That would be boring if it did.
Absolutely. So let's get to some fun stuff too, right? So for those teachers who have used BrainPOP and they do know what it is and what it does, they're very familiar with some of the characters like Moby. But for those teachers who aren't so familiar with who those characters are and all the rest of the BrainPOP cast of characters are in all the movies, how would you explain where that came from and who they are?
Yeah. I'll start a little bit. I'll give you some BrainPOP lore, the origin story of Moby. Legend has it that Mike Watanabe, our chief creative officer and first employee of BrainPOP, actually drew the first sketches of Moby on the back of his resume when in conversation with Dr. Kadar, who is the founder of BrainPOP. And it sort of, Moby was this genesis of a robot is relatable because it's not a certain gender, ethnicity, ability, right? A robot is a robot. And so having Moby, it started in having Moby in these short topics, starring a boy and a robot. Mike voiced the boy, Tim, and Moby made beeps. And what has sort of evolved in terms of Moby's purpose is Moby is in every BrainPOP movie. And he's almost stand-in for any questions that a kid might have. When Moby beeps, it's because he's asking a question or he's queuing up for, there's an important idea coming or a misconception that I need addressed. Moby doesn't say a word. Moby beeps, but those beeps are really, really intentional in supporting kids' thinking and sort of queuing them up to, here's a point that might be really great to dig into. And so that has not stopped. Moby, Tim, and Annie became sort of the Annie is our character who leads BrainPOP Jr. Tim and Moby were sort of our first explainers. As popularity grew, we felt a growing need, not even a growing need, a growing responsibility for all kids to be able to see themselves in our characters. And we added Cassie and Rita and Nat and Mateo. They're characters from many different backgrounds, speaking with different viewpoints. And it was a service of hoping that kids could see a little bit of themselves in those characters and also see those characters sort of being the explainers, being the ones sort of sharing that knowledge and bringing kids in. And so giving kids that opportunity to see themselves in that light has sort of been the journey of BrainPOP over the years.
That's a pretty cool historical insight because I don't think many people know that the history of that. That's pretty interesting. He actually drew it on the back of his resume.
Yep. And fun fact, if you go into BrainPOP 101, which is a little bit of a like, hey, teachers, you can get an overview. In our primary source activity, you can see those sketches from the resume.
See, so it pays to do something different on a resume sometimes too, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Talk about thinking outside the box and differentiation and, not doing the norm, right? That's amazing.
Yes. Mike Watanabe is the testament to that in all of the ways.
There you go. You authored a paper titled Equity in Learning with BrainPOP, Fostering Access and Impact for All. In the paper, you mentioned Make a Movie, and this totally got my attention because with Make a Movie, and I'm quoting here, students produce their own unique BrainPOP style movies, flexibly creating scenes with animated clips, images, simple text, and varying background colors. Using voiceover or computer narration, students can explain a focused point or process. How cool is that? Because in a nutshell, that's really content creation in the classroom, which has become such a huge thing lately. It's exploding with TikTok and YouTube videos and Instagram and you name it. And for mostly because of, engagement purposes, creativity, differentiated purpose, all the things we were talking about already with higher level thinking. So with that said, how else does BrainPOP engage students with different learning styles and accommodate diverse needs in the classroom?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's interesting because I haven't ever heard us framed as sort of content creators, but maybe we were early influencers in that content creation space.
You were a little ahead of your time, ahead of your
time. But no, that's a great example of, and I'll talk a little bit about Make a Movie, but then sort of segue over to the sort of bigger, how do we support a diversity of learners and their learning experiences? And we've chatted a little bit about it, but I think when you look at Make a Movie, for example, it's such a great example of complex thinking and a complex tasks in a way that is accessible. And when I say accessible, for me, that means all learners in the classroom have an entry point, and that entry point is into a meaningful learning experience. Quick aside, again, my background's in special education, was there for many, many, many years. And my sort of other rallying cry is that accessible, meaningful instruction is a right, not a privilege. And so when thinking about that frame and thinking about the learning activities that are in BrainPOP, it's just there is such a beautiful overlay, because if you think about something like Make a Movie, which a student has to plan what the sequence is, what they're communicating, they have to look at the variety of tools to do that. How am I going to best communicate this point? What is the point that I want to best communicate? How should I say it? Should I say it with a visual? Should I say it with words? Should I pull in a little text box like that we have in the movies? There's a bunch of ways to make that communication, and kids are getting to make decisions moment by moment that you can't do or you can't show in other forms. And so, and as an aside, that's if that is your preference. I have students in my life who would prefer to write I am not one of these students, but I have students in my life who would prefer to write a 5-paragraph essay to explain to me, let's say, the causes of the American Revolution. That is just the topic that's close to mine because that's what I just recently was digging into. And that's great. And you can do that on BrainPOP. You can have a worksheet. You can have a graphic organizer. You can choose to have that as your mean of representation, or you can make a movie. You can make a map. And so one of the things that I often say about BrainPOP is we're driving learners toward a shared learning goal, whatever that learning goal is that the teacher has named that BrainPOP can support, but we're giving them the tools to really give kids the choice about how they show their learning and how they process that learning. And so if you are a student who thrives in taking sort of more like auto-graded, I want to get a quiz, right? I want to know it. I want to feel right. I want to move on. Like there's a space for you. If it's, I need some time to process and I need some time to jot some notes and collect my thinking, there's an activity for that. And same thing with our creative tools. There's, if making a concept map is how you best show what you know, there's a tool for that. And that tool is designed for supports and embedded. So like if we think about our Make a Map tool, which is our concept mapping tool, it's not just kids pulling in nodes or circles and making connections. They can use images from the movie. They can go back, the movie is embedded, so they can go back to a point in the movie if they've want to revisit an idea. We have any label that's come up in the movie, you can click a little play button, it jumps right back there. So it's just like this embedded support. So it's not only just I have different ways to show what I know or process. It's also this low risk, safe space to make meaning and deepen connections to ideas. Yeah.
I love it because it does bring out, that's like creativity 101, right? Like that's self-directed learning 101. That's all the cool stuff and the good stuff that you would want to see in a 21st century classroom, that you would want to see in a classroom in general. I think it just, I love how it just embeds it and kind of promotes it almost automatically, very naturally. You don't have to really push any kid to do more or less. They kind of take it and make it, what they want it to be and how they want to kind of build it and scaffold it themselves.
Yep. 100%. It's there. Use it. Don't. It's really up to you, and you get to be the driver of your learning experience. I love that.
Yeah, it's great. And also even establishing a strong groundwork is crucial in any aspect in acquiring new knowledge. In any scenario you can think of, especially in the classroom. In what instances does the use of BrainPOP's films and those interactive elements contribute to the development of foundational knowledge and that essential literacy skill that you're trying to build? And why is it such an important pivot point in learning?
Yeah, that's a great question. And again, I think this comes back to that sort of beginning high level, what is BrainPOP, where I said it's engagement and it's rigor, and that drives learning outcomes. Because I think we just nailed a lot, not all of the ways, but some of the ways that BrainPOP engages kids and brings them in. But there's also a real intentionality behind the learning design of not just the movies, but all of the learning activities that are connected to the movies in that topic. And so we know that, again, background knowledge is super important for how you're going to engage in text in the world. And I mean, within a school context and outside of a school context. So if I'm deep in, I'm going to use causes of the American Revolution is top of mind. So we'll use that as an example. If I'm starting my American Revolution unit, I'm giving kids that entry point to build some background knowledge around what is the colony, right? Like what is a revolution, right? Like what are these sort of core ideas that I need to be
like a very specific just nugget.
Yep. And as a, not even just a reader, but a consumer of information, I need to know that I need to constantly be asking myself questions to help me make meaning of what I'm viewing, what I'm reading, what I'm engaging with. And that is something that BrainPOP very intentionally builds into its learning activities. So the pause points, for example, and for those who don't know what pause points are, they're one of our newer features, and they are grade leveled sets of questions embedded into the movie. So there's stopping points that are specific for those grades. And those questions that are asked are helping that grade level learner sort of scaffold to that grade level understanding. But the questions are framed in a way that are almost a little metacognitive. They're asking kids to not what is the main idea of this portion of the movie, but it'll say something like, hey, in these Causes of American Revolution movie at this point, why did Tim say XYZ? Or what did Moby's beep mean? And it's a really super low risk way for kids to almost see a questioning and think aloud model. Like if you're watching that movie, teachers stop BrainPOP movies all the time and say, pause, let's have a conversation really quick. Why did Tim say that? Or what did you notice about that image that was shown when Moby beeped and Tim said XYZ? And so pause points help do the list so that teachers don't have to come with all the questions, but those questions are really intentionally designed because they're getting at literacy skills, they're getting at meaning making skills, they're getting at vocab skills. So it's
not even that lower level recall anymore. Now you're really pushing those higher level, those depth of knowledge push points where you are expanding the understanding of it and not only just building on the literacy points of it.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite skills that we hit, and I just love to talk about this question, and we're talking about American Revolution, is around sort of unpacking the word choices that are being used. And so there's a question in one of the pause point sets that stops and says, it's about guerrilla warfare. And it says, guerrilla in Spanish means little war. What does that tell you about guerrilla warfare? And so you're stopping at a really strategic point to make grade level, meaning you're having kids say, like words and their alternate meanings have these sort of transfer, and you're sort of modeling a skill. And so I don't want to say it sneaks it in there. It embeds it into that learning process for kids.
Yeah, no, and you know what's great about that is that it's kind of like buying one, getting one free, in terms of a lesson. So you're buying one, getting one free in terms of like a teaching point. You're buying one, getting one free in terms of expanding knowledge or language or vocabulary, like you mentioned. It's a great way to push the thinking of a child who may just be ready just to give you that recall. But now there's multiple levels, multiple dimensions that you could actually then pivot off of and get into.
Absolutely. It's interesting. I often hear subject matter teachers say, gosh, I need to help my kids with their literacy skills, but I'm a social studies teacher, or a science teacher, or a technology teacher. Like, help. How do I do that? I can't do both. Right. Yeah. Like I don't have time to teach those literacy skills. And then there's another camp that says, but we're all literacy teachers. And like BrainPOP really holds that ethos and says like, but we are, and we're going to embed those literacy skills, which are just their meaning making, comprehension, vocab acquisition skills, into different subjects and sort of help do a little bit of the lift for you.
Yeah. So our podcast is really dedicated to reaching a worldwide audience of teachers that provides professional development. And I think you're doing a great job. Just if we had stopped right now, this has been really fantastic. And teachers do appreciate good professional development. And more importantly, they really do know when they've received good professional development. They know when it's been a waste of time. They know when it hasn't been worth it. They know when they haven't learned anything new. They know when it's good. And they really celebrate that kind of stuff. What professional development resources does BrainPOP offer teachers to effectively integrate it into their existing lessons and into their existing curriculum?
Yeah, you make such a great point about it's really spans the spectrum of relevance. And I think one of the most important tenets that sort of spirals through all professional learning at BrainPOP, whether it's our professional learning services or whether it's a BrainPOP 101 that's free, or a lesson plan, or our certified BrainPOP educator course, is that it has to be relevant to what you're teaching and who you're teaching. And so that ethos really drives everything. So for a professional learning services team, they will go work with schools and say, what is your priority? What are the instructional strategies that you're really focusing on this year? Tell me about your learners. And then they will design an experience for that teacher, that school district, whoever, that really links up and says, and here's how BrainPOP fits. We have a curriculum alignment team that says, show me your state standards. Show me the curriculum you're working with. I will show you how BrainPOP topics, learning activities fit that curriculum, that grade level, like whatever your instructional goals are, because don't make me do the work. You know what I mean? Like, don't make me do the work of trying to have to figure it out myself. I have enough going on in the day. Show me how it fits. And I think that is really a really powerful tenet for how BrainPOP approaches professional learning. We have have a certified BrainPOP educator course, which is near and dear to my heart. I used to work pretty closely with it, and it's a free course for anybody who has BrainPOP. But it's really a deep dive into like, what is the learning science behind each of these instructional activities in a BrainPOP topic, and how does it fit into an instructional strategy alongside bringing together this community of professionals from across the country to share ideas, to be in that collaborative space, because we know that that is also how professional learning sort of endures and like gets sticky for adults and gets in there. It's when you're talking about your ideas and sharing, oh my gosh, I have this class and I tried this topic and I used the quiz and the make a map, and this is what worked and this is what didn't. What about you? And share, really being in that conversation. So our certified BrainPOP educator, both course and then community that endures after that, is really powerful. But there, there's a ton.
But that's really good though, because, in terms of just relevance, right? Teachers who, and like you even just said it yourself, that, there's so much going on throughout the course of the day. Forget about like just the curriculum part. You also have social emotional, like things to look at and think about and kind of marry, into what you're teaching that day and whether or not it's going to work or not. And who's feeling well and who's not. And there's so many things, so many variables in a classroom. It's nice that a teacher could get a very specific, very relevant professional development to kind of guide them and help them so that it does, I don't want to say make their life easier, but the understanding becomes a lot easier so that it can be intertwined, so to speak, into that curriculum or into that lesson that they're doing that day.
100%. And I think you're bringing up a really good point about the role of just educational technology in general and teacher capacity, right? Like the role of ed tech is to make learning better and make your jobs easier because it's embedding good learning into the product. And I think that is a commitment that's sort of held across BrainPOP. It starts in the way we build new features. We do it in collaboration with teachers. We do co-design sessions with teachers to say, what do you need? Like, we have this idea. We've got a lot of data that this is important, but like, what are the nuances? Tell us. And really doing that co-design with teachers all the way to our learning design team who holds on to, this is what learning science says is really good for learning. And this is what we know about instructional strategies. So let us build as much as we can in the most seamless way to make your job a little easier and have one less thing for you to do, because you're trusting and knowing that this is that this engaging and rigorous learning is happening and driving those learning outcomes.
That's big too, because if you really, look at professional development, a lot of times a school district or a school itself, an administrative team will say, this is what I want you to do today versus what I would like to do today to make my job, like you said, a little bit easier, but also so that it's relevant and it's solid. I want to use this. I don't want to be told, to use something that may not really do me any good. I want to actually get something that's solid and concrete so that I could then incorporate it in and I could marry it into everything that I do. So that's such a fine line, tell me I have to do this, yet I kind of really want to do that.
Yeah.
And that's more important to me. I love that.
Yeah. And teacher agency, like teachers are smart. They make really good decisions and you empower them to make those decisions. Right. And I think that's a lot of what we see, like partnering with BrainPOP. It's like, I don't mean to be like, it's a good decision, but
it's a good decision.
A good decision. Yeah.
So there's obviously a lot of thought and effort that goes into BrainPOP. You're hearing it now, right? Just from this conversation, and especially with the topics, the wide range of topics, curriculum areas, and I'm sure I know that teachers appreciate that. What factors does BrainPOP consider when creating just new content, new things that are happening? Ed tech upgrades, things that are happening historically. How does BrainPOP ensure that its content remains up to date, number one, and also aligned to all the curriculum standards that teachers are being faced to incorporate and use?
Yeah, 100%. I will say that just from a genesis place, standards drive what concepts are tackled in the movie, right? That we know that teachers are using and kids are learning. And so it has to be connected to what their grade level expectations are. But when it comes to choosing a topic, there's a little bit more openness. It's sort of what the standards require. Are there sort of gaps that we want to make sure we can address? we'll get teacher write-ins that say, I would love a movie on, I'm trying to think of the most recent one we got. I would love a movie on computational thinking. My kids are getting into coding. I need to back this up with the what and the why. And so we'll get requests in, and it's also thinking around, and those requests take different shapes. So we had a bunch of requests in that said more content on African history. And that's sort of not all of African history, but from that perspective. And where that took shape from our editorial team was actually ending up with our most recent Mansa Musa movie, because it was like, okay, we have connected topics. What's sort of a piece that's missing that can connect a lot of them? And in this particular instance, it just happened to be that. So there are lots of different ways that those topics get chosen, but we also know that events happen, life changes, and there are lots of keeping up on what changes happen in events. We're in constant dialogue with content experts around writing, like how are we referring to people of this community in this instance, in this context? And it's really, really nuanced. And those writing guidelines change over time because humans change over time. When events happen, like Queen Elizabeth passing, our Queen Elizabeth movie got updated in record time, might I add. It was out like the next day because we had folks on our scriptwriter team and our editorial team who had the forethought to be like, there's this event, change is coming. We're going to sort of hold it. And so there's a constant sort of pulse on events and changing and discourse with subject matter experts that really anchor when and how movies are updated and what level and grain size of those. But I will say, as somebody who also, our team on the learning design team not only thinks about future learning, but the learning that is. And so we redo and make updates to a lot of movies because there is this sort of like recursive expectation of and responsibility.
Right.
Yeah.
You even used a couple examples. These because think about it, standards do vary worldwide. Yeah. It's that we don't have a standard for the standards. It isn't like it's not a one size fits all. And so to think about a worldwide level and that worldwide stage, that's what it's about, and the fact that you could actually acknowledge that's pretty good, especially because it is something that everyone anywhere could really, connect to and access.
100%. Totally.
So can you share any, I don't know if you can, but can you share any recent additions to BrainPOP that are designed to enhance student experience and support teachers and even administrators? Or is BrainPOP launching anything down the line that you can kind of give us a sneak peek at?
Oh man. Yeah. I'll give you, I'll tell you about our most recent launches, and then I'll leave you with a bit of a cliffhanger. So I had talked about them a little bit. Our newest feature launch on BrainPOP, our core product is pause points, and they're, as I mentioned, these grade leveled sets of sort of scaffolded questions. You get to apply those literacy skills, but it really helps you have that grade level entry point into the movie viewing experience. And when we're thinking that we hold universal design for learning in their design as well, because sometimes they're like a low risk multiple choice question. You've got two to pick one because it's not about assessment. It's about giving you real time feedback. As a student, did I get it right? Nope. Okay. Here's my misconception. I need to move forward. There are also open-ended questions. And because again, it's low risk, it's really about meaning making. You can draw your response. You can write your response. You can record your response. If I am intimidated by writing and I sometimes shut down, that's okay. Record your response, right? You're still doing the thinking and you're still doing the work.
There's your content creation again, by the way.
Exactly. And we also just launched admin reports and teacher reports, which are super exciting. So our teacher reports were developed and co-designed with teachers. And we wanted to make sure that it fit within the ecosystem of assessment. Kids are assessed in many different ways, but with varying degrees, right? There's benchmarks and there's practice tests. And BrainPOP really takes an approach to assessment that's assessment for learning. So keeping a really formative assessment approach to gathering info on kids and making it usable and actionable for teachers to use the next day, the day after. I don't have to wait a month for test results, or I don't have to, this is really, so our teacher reports give that real-time feedback so a teacher can make instructional decisions tomorrow with what kids did on BrainPOP today. It has so many fun functionalities that I'm going to talk about really quickly because I love them so much and I wish I had them as a teacher, which is I can see my whole class at a glance, but then I can like sort with most kids got this question wrong. So I'm going to group them and give them a different assignment to sort of support that misunderstanding. This group got kids right. So I can group them in this interactive table and give them an extension activity. So there's just a lot of opportunity in that report to really give not even just actionable feedback, dynamic interface, but you can be inspired to do your next level of support or push with BrainPOP too.
That's awesome. That is really cool that you can go either way and really tap into the needs specifically right then and there. That's pretty cool.
Yep.
So this has really been a lot of fun. We only have a couple of minutes left. I want to play a game called Input Output, where I'm just going to ask you some questions and just give me the first thing that comes to your mind.
Okay.
Don't be nervous. You ready
I'm
to go?
only a little nervous. It's fine.
What's one app on your phone that you just can't live without?
Oh, Spotify.
Good one, especially because you can listen to Classroom Dynamics on Spotify. Best piece of advice anyone has ever given you?
I will speak to as an educator. I had a professor who my first semester said, I'm going to tell you guys 3 letters that's going to get you through teaching. And we were like, okay, this is great. And it was WSV, and win small victories, because in the classroom day to day, there are these moments that feel big, that feel sometimes I have so much, there's lesson planning and there's PD and there's this, and I have to talk to Johnny's mom, and it's hard to say, but like I worked with Barbara today and she could do 2 steps more than she could do the day before. And that is a win. Hold that win, honor that win, and then meet Barbara tomorrow and see where she can go then. But that idea of like winning the small victory is a ticket with me in life now beyond the classroom.
That's great advice for a brand new teacher.
Yes.
That's great advice for a veteran teacher. That's great advice for everyone in between. I think that is really good. Besides the videos, what's one favorite part of BrainPOP that you still feel every teacher should use no matter what? Besides
the pause points, because they're part of the movie, I will say Make a Map. Make a Map is my again, I don't know if I'm biased because I'm, this is kind of my thinking, but it is like the most accessible way to let kids show what they know and support them. And I will nerd out over scaffolds and support and differentiation all day long. So my Make a Map is my sort of holy grail of, oh my gosh, please use that.
If you could go back in time and give yourself one piece of technology from today, what would it be?
Tell you what it wouldn't be. It wouldn't be social media, because I am old and I am glad that wasn't. No, I'm just kidding. It would be. Oh, this is a great question. One piece of technology. Oh, Apple tags. I am a notorious loser of things. They are my godsend now with where are my keys? Where's my kid? No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, totally. Apple
so you
tags.
have all the air tags are on everything.
Yes.
That's great.
An uncomfortable amount of places.
So when you open up your Find My app,
yeah,
you have to keep scrolling to find all.
They're all here somewhere. Great.
That's good. Hey, listen, you could always, signal it to tell you where it is,
That's my go-to. That is my go-to.
Finally, if you could create a new educational mandate or law, what would it be and why?
Oh, this is so great. I would really love for every teacher to get the opportunity, whether it's in pre-service, in service, to dive deeply into learning and the brain of learner diversity. Todd Rose is a fantastic man. Look up his TED Talk on YouTube. And he just talks about this idea of jagged learner profiles and how no one is either good in everything, bad in everything. It's just we all have this slightly different jagged learner profile, and holding how to design for that and supporting how to build proactively into our classroom and have the resources and time and money to do it.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's having the resources and time and money to really do what centering learner diversity and access to meaningful learning looks like.
That's the bottom line, I think, right?
Yep.
That's the bottom line. So this has been awesome. We've had such a great conversation. I think you gave a lot of awesome information too. Like I said, even a teacher who might be starting off for the first time this year, or a teacher who's been doing it for 25 years. I think you really have given them some really great talking points that they can talk to with their colleagues, and even some information that they could use with BrainPOP. But before we go, just tell teachers where they can go to get started with BrainPOP, and what you even suggest teachers use for the first time if they're just getting started with it.
If you want to learn more about BrainPOP, you can go to brainpop.com/classroom-solutions. I will share that link with you, and you can put it in the notes. Once you're in BrainPOP as a teacher, dive into BrainPOP 101. It will walk you through all the great, amazing features, but it does it in this sort of like really fun metacognitive way. So visit their BrainPOP 101, or just dive into a topic and tap that natural curiosity that doesn't just live in kids, right? It lives in like all of us as learners, and like take the deep dive.
That's awesome. Well, for those of you who have been listening today, thank you for tuning in, and make sure that you've shared what you've learned or any takeaways or reflections that you've had, and tag us on Twitter at Class Dynamics or Instagram at Classroom Dynamics Podcast. We always love to hear your thoughts on our episodes and sharing ways in which you're using what you've learned, especially with BrainPOP today. You can also help support Classroom Dynamics with as little as $3 a month at classroomdynamicspodcast.buzzsprout.com. Once again, I'd like to thank Dr. Barbara Hubert from BrainPOP for being with us today, and also being such a huge inspiration in the world of not just education, but ed tech education, because I think that's, we mentioned that before too. I think that's important, especially with a 21st century classroom.
Adam, thank you so much. This was a joy and the best way to sort of wrap up a Friday. Thank you so much for this. A great conversation.
Thank you. We're definitely going to have you back.
Happy to.
For more on BrainPOP, visit brainpop.com. On social media, on LinkedIn at BrainPOP, Facebook BrainPOP Official, Instagram BrainPOP_official, and on Twitter at BrainPOP. Also, find more information at the blog at blog.brainpop.com, and you can also check out the story of BrainPOP on YouTube by searching a BrainPOP style movie. And for white papers authored by Dr. Barbara Hubert, search How to Maximize a Knowledge-Building Approach to Literacy Skills with BrainPOP and Equity in Learning with BrainPOP, Fostering Access and Impact for All. And that brings us to the end of this episode of Classroom Dynamics, where knowledge and inspiration meets innovation. I hope you've enjoyed today's discussion and found it both insightful and uplifting. As always, my goal is to provide you with practical strategies, engaging stories, and powerful insights that can fuel your motivation as an educator. I believe that when knowledge and inspiration do come together, incredible things can happen in your classroom. And for all of you who may feel that it's too late to strengthen your craft, I challenge you to make it your mission to do so. You've worked hard to get to where you are today, and it's never too late to infuse new life into your work. So why not make today that day to do so? I'm Adam Todd, and you've been listening to Classroom Dynamics, a teacher podcast. You can follow Classroom Dynamics on X at Class Dynamics, or on Instagram at Classroom Dynamics Podcast. If you haven't already, go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. And if you know a teacher who may benefit from today's show, please share it with them. We'll be back soon with more captivating conversations, inspiring stories, and strategies that you can implement into your everyday routines. Until then, keep igniting that spark in your classroom and never stop believing in the incredible impact you have as an educator. You're more powerful and inspirational than you think. If you loved this episode, you'll enjoy my conversation with educational leader and author of Disruptive Thinking, Eric Sheninger. Join us as we sit down with the visionary educator and true trailblazer in the field of educational leadership and technology integration. Eric shares his unparalleled insights on transforming schools into dynamic hubs of innovation. From digital learning strategies to fostering a culture of continuous improvement, our conversation with Eric offers invaluable wisdom for educators, administrators, and anyone passionate about the future of education and disruptive thinking.
And, what I always, really think about is, two things. How are students using technology to learn in ways they couldn't without it? And number two, if you're an adult, how does your use of technology represent a fundamental improvement over what you did in the past without it? And if you can't answer those questions, it's okay not to use technology.